Good evening, aspirants. So now we are going to deal with fundamental duties from the book Indian Polity by M. Laxmikant. So, the original constitution contained only the fundamental rights and not the fundamental duties. And so they incorporated the duties of the state in the constitution in the form of directive principles of state policy. Later in 1976, the fundamental duties of citizens were added in the constitution. And in 2002, one more fundamental duty was added. The fundamental duties in the Indian constitution are inspired by the constitution of erstwhile USSR. Notably, none of the constitutions of major democratic countries like USA, Canada, Germany, and so on specifically contain a list of duties of citizens. And the Japanese constitution is the only democratic constitution in world which contains a list of duties of citizens. And we will move on to Swearing Committee recommendations. In 1976, the Congress Party set up the Sardar Swearing Committee to make recommendations about fundamental duties. And the Congress government at the center at that time accepted these recommendations and enacted the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act in 1976. And this amendment added a new part, namely Part 4A, to the Constitution. This new part consists of only one article, that is Article 51A, which for the first time specified a code of 10 fundamental duties of the citizens. Though the Swearing Committee suggested the incorporation of 8 fundamental duties in the Constitution, the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976 included 10 fundamental duties. So the Swearing Committee gave only 8 fundamental duties, but the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act at last had 10 fundamental duties. Interestingly, certain recommendations of the committee were not accepted by the Congress Party and hence not incorporated in the Constitution. Some of them are: the Parliament may provide for the imposition of such penalty or punishment as may be considered appropriate for any non-compliance with or refusal to observe any of the duties. No law imposing such penalty or punishment shall be called in question in any court or on the ground of infringement of any of fundamental rights or on the ground of repugnancy to any other provision of the Constitution. Duty to pay taxes should also be a fundamental duty of the citizen. So you should note this: duty to pay taxes should also be a fundamental duty of the citizens. This was the recommendation of Swearing Committee, but the then government refused to add this as a fundamental duty. So we'll move on to the list of fundamental duties. Okay, so you can read the fundamental duties. Here there are 11 fundamental duties. So I'll read it for you. You can also read it. According to Article 51A, it shall be the duty of every citizen of India to abide by the Constitution and respect its ideals and institutions, the national flag and the national anthem. And the other important is to defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. And we'll move on to other important one is to protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers and wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures, and to safeguard public property and to abjure violence. So you can read the rest of the one, no need of explanations and all. And so after the Swearing Committee, through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, they added total 10 fundamental duties. Among them, 8 was by the Swearing Committee and 2 was the extra 2 were there. And after few years, in 2002, with the help of 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002, they added one more fundamental duty, that is to provide opportunities for education to his child or ward between the age of 6 and 14 years. This duty was added by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002. Then we'll move on to the features of fundamental duties. You can read it. Some important features are, some of the fundamental duties are moral duties, while the others are civic duties, such as cherishing noble ideals of freedom struggle is a moral one, but and respecting the Constitution, national flag and national anthem is a civic duty. Then the other important feature is the fundamental duties are confined to citizens only and do not extend to foreigners. So these fundamental duties are confined only to the citizens of India, not to the foreigners. And like the DPSPs, as we said in the previous video, like the directive principles, these fundamental duties are also non-justiciable. Okay, so these are non-justiciable, but fundamental rights are justiciable. So we'll move on to the criticism of fundamental duties. You can read it, nothing much to explain, but I'll move through some of them, such as the fundamental duties mentioned in Part 4A of the Constitution have been criticized on the following ways, such as the list of duties is not exhaustive as it does not cover other important duties like casting vote, paying taxes. We said earlier, the paying taxes was included by the Swearing Committee, but the government rejected it, and then family planning and so on. In fact, duty to pay taxes was recommended by the Swearing Committee. I said it now. Then they have been described by the critics as a code of moral precepts due to their non-justiciable character. Interestingly, the Swearing Committee had suggested for penalty or punishment for the non-performance of fundamental duties, and their inclusion in the Constitution was described by the critics as superfluous. You know why it was said like this? This was said because the duties included in the Constitution as fundamental would be performed by the people even though they were not incorporated in the Constitution. Some of the critics say so. The critics said that the inclusion of fundamental duties as an appendage to Part 4 of the Constitution has reduced their value and significance. So the critics say that they should have added the fundamental duties in along with Part 3 as a continuity, so that it could have got much more importance and value. So we'll go on to significance of fundamental duties, such as in spite of criticisms and opposition, the fundamental duties are considered significant from the following viewpoints. They serve as a reminder to the citizens that while enjoying their rights, they should also be conscious of duties they owe to the country, to their country, their society, and to their fellow citizens. And also they provide us a warning against the anti-national and anti-social activities like burning the national flag, destroying public property, and so on. Also, it is a source of inspiration for citizens and promote a sense of discipline and commitment among them. Then last but not the least important thing is they are enforceable by law. Hence the parliament can provide for the imposition of appropriate penalty or punishment for failure to fulfill any of them. So then H.R. Gokhale, the then law minister, gave the following reasons for incorporating the fundamental duties in the Constitution after 26 years of its inauguration, and so on. He said many things, such as India, particularly on the eve of emergency in June 1975, a section of people showed no anxiety to fulfill their fundamental obligations of respecting the established legal order. So, during that time, many of the citizens of India were not bothered about the fundamental duties, that they had to do these things. So, during that time, Indira Gandhi, the then Prime Minister, justified the inclusion of fundamental duties in the Constitution and argued that their inclusion would help to strengthen democracy, and that led to many riots and all. But the then opposition in the parliament strongly opposed the inclusion of fundamental duties in the Constitution by the Congress government. However, the new Janata government headed by Morarji Desai in the post-emergency period did not annul the fundamental duties. Okay, so that's it, nothing much more than that. Then comes the Verma Committee observations. Okay, so the Verma Committee on Fundamental Duties of Citizens 1999 identified the existence of legal provisions for the implementation of some of the fundamental duties, and they are mentioned below, such as the Prevention of Insults to National Honor Act 1971 prevents disrespect to the Constitution of India, national flag, and national anthem. Then the other important thing is the Protection of Civil Rights Act of 1955 provides for punishments for offences related to caste and religion. Then the IPC, Indian Penal Code, declares the imputations and assertions prejudicial to national integration as punishable offences. Then other two important points are the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 prohibits trade in rare and endangered species. Then the Forest Conservation Act of 1980 checks the indiscriminate deforestation and diversion of forest land for non-forest purposes. So that's it. Fundamental duties for you. You can read, post the video, you can read the notes. So thank you for listening. We'll be back soon. Thank you. All the best. Have a good day.